Hello everybody. In this video I wanted to look at a few ways to create a very simple graphic using Adobe Premiere's built-in graphics tools. In the example here you can see I have a simple lower third overlaid on a clip, so nothing fancy, just white text on a black box. You can see that plays back and then drops out. First we'll look at using the essential graphics options in Premiere for creating a title like this one. And then we'll look at how we can use the graphics tools to build our own from scratch, like this one. You can see there isn't much difference between the two in terms of appearance, but the way we put them together is slightly different, and it gives us a chance to explore the tools in more detail. So I'm going to start with a fresh sequence. I've already marked about 8 seconds of my GV here, so I'm just going to click on the clip and select New Sequence from Clip. Doing it this way rather than creating a new sequence means I don't need to worry about the sequence settings causing me problems when it comes to playback. And the next thing I'm going to do is switch over to the graphics view. Graphics and titles are usually one of the last things you do in editing. They can take time to get right, so if we add them as we go, we might be using up valuable editing time adding graphics to something we might cut out later on. The layout of the windows changes to include a new window on the right here called Essential Graphics. These are presets and layouts and styles of commonly used graphic elements, and you can explore them at your own pace. But for now I'm going to dive right in and drag the basic lower third over the top of my video here. I'll just mute that track so we don't need to listen to the traffic noise. Now if I double click that, you'll see the Essential Graphics window changes to the Edit tab. There's not much to see here, there's just 2 lines of text. But if I go over to the tool palette and select the Type tool, and then click on the text, you'll see a few more options to play with. So with the Type tool selected, I can select the text and I can edit that as I see fit. And then with the Type tool still selected, I can click on the second line of text and I can make some edits there as well. Changing the settings for the text is pretty straightforward, but my advice is to switch to the Selection tool and then click on the text that you want to edit before you do any or make any changes. That's a reliable way to make sure that all the text is selected and is going to be affected by any changes that you make. Apart from changing the colour, change that back to white, you probably want to change the font size. My advice is to start with the longest name or caption first, and that way you're not going to pick a size that looks okay and then find that a caption doesn't fit later on. You can also play with the spacing and other text elements, but that's not going to help you too much if you've got lots of characters to squeeze in. So the text looks okay, but it could be a little bit clearer. I don't necessarily want to make it too much bigger, so maybe a strap or a coloured box behind the text would make it stand out against that busy background of the video of the street. It's fairly straightforward to add a new graphics element. You just open up the edit options and then click the new layer icon, and you can see I can add more text, but I can also add a rectangle or an ellipse. If I pick rectangle, you'll see a box appears on screen, and then using the select tool I can move that box around and resize it and make sure it's in the right place. Don't worry if the box covers the text, we can easily sort that out, but at this point I often find it helpful to see where my shapes have covered up the text. It just means I don't get any letters poking out of the sides and the box is the right size. Now in the edit window you can see a new layer has been added. To the top of the list it's shape 1, but it might be something similar. Now like Photoshop we can drag and drop our layers to change the ordering on the screen. So if I drag that shape down to the bottom of the list, it moves it down to the bottom of the stack of elements on the screen. Now changing the colour and other options is just like editing the text. So I can select my background, select fill, and pick a colour that I like. Don't forget to give some thought to the way the text and the background colours work together. So now I have a workable lower third, and if I want to create another one, I can just copy and paste and make any changes to the new title. So I select the clip here, and then copy, and then put the blue marker where I want my new title to appear. And just to make sure that I don't overwrite or get rid of any video, I'm just going to make sure that I've got the V1 clip or source content directed to go on to video layer 2, and then edit and paste. And now you can see there's my second clip, and if I double click that to go into edit mode and select the type tool, and I can change the name on the clip. And if I come out of edit, roll back, you can see my first title is Andy Dickinson, my second title is Bob Dickinson. So using a preset from the essential graphics options is a quick way to get started, and you can create some pretty complex graphics using a mix of text and layers and shapes. But having all of the elements in one block may not be the most flexible way to work. So rather than using the essential graphics preset, let's try building a lower third from separate layers. So I'm just going to clean up the timeline. So I'm back to my original clip. And now I'm going to go up to the menu options up here and select Graphics, New Layer, and then you'll see a similar window to the Layers option. So I can select Text, Vertical Text, Rectangle, Ellipse. So I'm going to start by selecting Rectangle, and you'll see the box appears on screen. And using my Select tools, I can move that around and position it as before, just as I did with the Essential Graphics preset. And you can see all of the options are available for me to edit. Now if I deselect that clip and go back up to Graphics, New Layer, and this time select Text, you'll see it adds a new layer onto the timeline and the text box appears at the top. And if I drag that down using the Select tool and put that onto a layer, again you can see I've got all the options to change the colour and the font and various other elements. And then if I click the Type tool, then I can change the font, the content. And I can continue to build up, deselect, select Graphics, New Layer and Text, and then start to create that lower third. So I would have some smaller text down here, which will be where I put the job description in. So you can see this is a little bit more fiddly, but the result is pretty much the same. And once the layers are on the actual timeline, the editing tools are the same. So I can quickly build up a lower third using this process. It's more complicated, but it does mean that changing an element is less disruptive. So for example, by making that background rectangle or strap a separate element, I can now drag and drop that into my project. You can see there it's a graphics clip now. So I can reuse that. So if I decided I wanted a new graphic, I can drop that graphics background in, and then I could add another layer of text or add more text, different text. It could be a breaking news strap, something like that. But at the end of the process, if I decide that actually I don't like that colour for my backgrounds, I want to change that, or the design for the show changes, then I can change that background graphic just once. So I can change the colour. And that graphic will change right across the board. So I need to make one edit and all of the graphics will change. If I did it using the Essential Graphics way of working, I would need to go in and edit each clip. Breaking down the graphics into assets like this, or to separate elements, is useful when it comes to creating more complex graphics